So, welcome back to another episode of the Parent 4 to 4 podcast. I'm your host, Gaurang, and today we have something really special for you. So far, we have talked about the Parent 4 to 4 hypercar, the technology behind it, and the future of motorsport. But today, we go deeper into the mind behind it all. Today, we have Nico Perrin with us, a race engineer, an aerodynamicist, a performance engineer, and a simulator driver. He has spent 25 years in motorsport and still counting, with 14 years just dedicated to the development of the Perrin 4 to 4. If there's an Adrian Newey of endurance racing, it's him. So today we just pull back the curtains on his journey, his passion, the struggles, the breakthroughs, and what keeps him pushing the limits of innovation. So Nico, welcome back to the podcast again. How are you feeling today?
Hi, Gorang. Nice to see you again. And thank you for giving me the opportunity to answer these questions today.
My
It's
pleasure.
a bit different to what we've done before, but I'm excited. Thank you.
Right. So I'm gonna begin by going back to your past and just before you were an engineer and just before how Parent 4 to 4 was in shape. Who was Nico as a kid, and what kind of dreams did you have? What kind of goals did you have?
Well, what kind of kid was I? Um, you know, I've always felt a little bit different, to be honest. I was very much I enjoyed really going to school and studying, and I was actually pretty good at school. I could understand things quite easily. But
Hmm.
when it came to socially and making friends, it was not always easy for me. When I was little, I was very shy, extremely shy, and it took me a few years to go over that, and be okay to go in front of people and speak for myself. So I guess it gave me a lot of time also on my own to learn and to think. I was a big thinker, thinking a lot. Maybe
Right.
that's also why I'm doing what I'm doing now.
Absolutely. Uh, well, many of the world's greatest innovators had this, you know, like aha moment or like an eureka moment, right? As a kid. And as you just said, you think a lot and be it with small things or something really complex or just questioning what we are doing and why we are existing. So, did you ever have a moment where you realized you wanted to dedicate your life to motorsports and engineering, like very specifically?
I don't think there was one moment. I really knew what I wanted to do from a young age. Engineering was always something that interested me. But listen, I've got a story for you. When I was about
Yeah.
14, 15, I started going go-kart racing. The
Well,
reason
it all
was
begins there.
I was not racing. I was not driving straight away. I was a mechanic for a few,
Oh,
yeah, for a few years, because my family, we were five children. There was not enough money for to pay for a drive for me. But
right.
we had people in our family who were racing go kart in France, and
Hmm.
they were doing the French Championship, endurance championship. So 6 hours races, and once a year we do the
Wow.
24 hours of Le Mans, and it was really high level, international level. So
Yes.
from an age of 14, I used to watch all the Formula One races, by the way, which I'll talk about in a minute. So I
Hmm.
loved motorsport anyway, and I was really lucky that I could go and follow these people, go with these people and their team, and be a mechanic. And I was
Yeah.
so passionate and so focused, and wanted to spend all my spare time to after the races. I'd help cleaning the go kart, the material. I'd help
Yes.
getting ready for the next race, and we'd go maybe 6 or 7 times a year all over France, and it was great. And I was so focused and so loving it that the people who were I was with helped me actually
Yeah.
drive the go kart. They offered me like
Right.
an experience to drive the go kart. I think I had
Hmm.
watched it so much during the races. I was like a spotter. I had to keep an eye on the go kart, because if there was any problem, I go and run and pick it up. So
Right.
I
Right.
felt like I learned how to drive by watching for at
Hmm.
least a year or two. And then I drove, and actually I was pretty good straight away. I had a feeling
At
for
what
it.
age did you begin to drive? Like a
So
go-kart
it
maybe.
was, yeah, so maybe 16,
Okay.
16, and because they understood the focus I had. I think it was always something very clear with me is if I invest myself and I was very, very focused
Yes.
and be okay to spend the time. So they saw that in me and they helped me to do some races. I wanted to absolutely wanted to do Le Mans 24 hours go kart, and that was in
All right.
1997. So I was 19 years old, and I saved money for a year for that, and it was quite a lot of money at the time. So I was
Yes.
doing jobs when I had time, and then summer jobs, and I saved money, and I did Le Mans 24 hours, and I finished on the podium as well, which was great. So
Wow,
for
that's
me,
amazing.
motorsport, came over the years, and Formula One. Watching Formula One, I have amazing memories of watching Ayrton Senna racing with Prost at the
Oh
time,
my
and
God.
then Michael
Yes.
Schumacher starting racing.
Yes.
I was a big fan of Formula One. I would wake up at night, watch the race in Suzuka, the Japanese race. Yeah,
Right.
so it was in me. I felt like it was the right place for me to be in.
Awesome. So I had a follow-up question to this, which is, which was the most intriguing part of the car or a go-kart that made you want to learn about it? Or, wow, like, let's just imagine as if like a gearbox, how amazing it is, right? Like you can change gears and like as a kid, that could absolutely blow your mind. So which part of the car just blew your mind?
There's not a specific part, which is why I've touched everything in my career. I don't think
Yes.
I don't think engines, for example, fascinated me as much
Hmm.
or more than tires or more than the chassis. For
Hmm.
me, I wanted to embrace the whole challenge of how can we build the best machine and go as fast as we can
Yes.
around the track. You know,
Yes.
I used to do dreams about going faster and faster and faster around the track. So for me, it was like how can we go faster?
Mm.
Like I try to understand the tires, how to make them a bit better. Try to understand the engine, try to and the driving as well. So the whole
Hmm.
package really, and that has followed me throughout my career. Like I did, I've done aerodynamics, I've done chassis design, I've done everything really. Worked on tires, engineering. So yeah.
Spoke like a true leader. Even as a kid, you always wanted to make sure that. I mean, you realize that every single part or the component of car makes the car faster. It's just not about all about the engine. So you realize that, and clearly the history, we can see what you have done as a as a performance engineer, as an aerodynamicist, and a race engineer, whatnot, right? um, so was there ever a time that you wanted to do something which is completely different, maybe an astronaut, maybe an artist, or even a racer?
Actually, I'll tell you something. So before I was into motorsports, when I was younger, so when I was 7, 8, 9, I was massively into aircrafts.
uh,
I wanted to be a test pilot. So I was subscribed to this thing that every month I would get a magazine and some cards, of jets, fighter
yeah.
jets. I
Hmm.
collected them over the years. I remember 2 boxes of cards. I kept, looking at them. I love the facts about every aircraft, the performance, the mass, the history. I used to um, I used to photocopy everything I could find about aircrafts. So back in the days, we
Yep.
didn't have the internet. We didn't have. So all we had is encyclopedia at home,
Yeah.
and
Big books.
yeah, and dictionaries. So I'd go and find aircrafts and fighter jets and and also how does a plane fly? That was a massive question for me. I
Fascinating.
wanted to
Yeah.
understand
Yeah.
that. It was probably like the
Hmm.
first thing I really wanted to understand is aerodynamics of an aircraft. How does
Correct.
I remember flying to see my dad in Africa when I was 8 on a
Hmm.
Boeing 747, and I remember watching the
Awesome.
wing and thinking how does the wing lift the whole thing because it's so heavy.
Yeah.
And then my
Hmm.
dad actually explained to me that summer the difference between the low pressure on top and the higher pressure under the wing
Yes.
and with the velocity. So I started to really love the idea that of understanding physics like this. So aircrafts was the big thing, and I wanted to be a pilot. But what happened is I had motion sickness, probably like lack of
Oh,
balance. I've had that pretty much all my life, inner ear issue. So when I went on a light aircraft for my birthday or my 10th birthday as a present, I was really sick. I didn't like it.
oh
And
no.
so I sort of realized it's not really for me, but I still the engineering side and the machine going fast, that's obsession I had, that
Yeah.
interest I had, then carried over into motorsport and Formula One. Yeah.
Right. Awesome. Awesome. Well, moving on to motorsports. We know the motorsport world is really brutal in terms of the competition, in terms of the innovation. So not just on track as well, off track, but in life. What's the biggest like personal like sacrifice you've had to make to your career when you eventually got involved in motorsports?
Yeah, quite a few. I don't see them so much as sacrifices, but I had to make difficult decisions, and one of
Yeah.
the main decisions was to go and live in the UK. Obviously,
Right.
I'm French, and I grew up in France. Actually, my first job was at Le Mans in France, Le Mans 24 hours. I was there for 3 4 years with Courage. It was a great experience, but my dream was to work in Formula One.
Right.
My first job was nearly in Formula One. I had a position to go at Prost Grand Prix, the French team, in 2001.
Yeah.
Yeah, which was
Yes.
very close to where my parents were as well. So it would have been ideal. But the team folded actually. It was the year where Arrows and Prost Grand Prix stopped. So it was a
Right.
difficult economic climate for Formula One. So
Mhm.
I was lucky to find a job at Le Mans 24 hours. I loved it, which is also the reason why I want to go back with Perrin now for 24. But the Formula
Yes.
One fascination that I had and the dream I had to work in Formula One brought me to live in the UK. So when I was 27, I had
Hmm.
my first job in F1 at Williams. I was so
Right.
excited. I was like a kid, when I got that job. And I left my
And,
country.
and your first job was?
My first job was I was performance engineer in the test team. So there was a test team in
Right.
Spain. We had a specific car and a driver for that,
Hmm.
and I was a performance engineer in the test team. But after only 6 months, somebody in the race team dropped out, and I replaced, and I became performance engineer in the race team for Alexander Wurz and
Oh,
Kazuki Nakajima. So
yes.
then I was in the race team for 3 years. But yeah, speaking of compromises, also the job I had at Le Mans, 24 hours, was a seven days a week job. There was no weekends, very little holidays. The money was not very good. The salary was not great, but it was where I wanted to be. It was motorsport. It was high end of motorsport, fast cars
Yeah.
and prototypes, and it was perfect for me. So I did that. After when I went to Formula One, money was better. I was in the UK, and I've been in the UK 20 years. This year is my 20th year in the UK. I have
Wow.
3 children born in the UK. My family is in the UK. I have a business in the UK. So and I love it here actually. So
Yeah.
when I think of compromise, I don't think it as a compromise. Actually, it has allowed me to travel. It has allowed me to live in this country in the UK and experience new things. So it's been amazing.
Well, I think since you have not mentioned any, compromises, maybe the next, question might eke that out if there is any. So, so was there ever a time where you just felt like walking away from motorsports because something was not working out, uh, or maybe it was just too hard, and you just realized, oh no, this is not for me, that particular work. So, if so, then what pulled you back in, right? Did you ever have a moment like that?
Well, Gorang, I never thought of quitting motorsports, but I will tell you something. Um, because I told you I've I'm very focused, and motorsport is where I want to use it as my platform
Yes.
to develop myself and to give something to the world. The way I think the best way for somebody when you have a passion is to stick with it and become one of the best, or do the best work you can. And that's my commitment. Motorsport is my industry, is my passion. But uh, throughout my career, there have been moments where I quit. You know, I quit. I quit Williams Formula One.
Okay.
I didn't quit motorsport, but I quit Williams. I quit
Got
Williams
it.
to start my business. But the
Mm-hmm.
story is more complicated than that. I told you when I was little, I was really shy and I struggled to maybe do public speaking, for example. It was really, really hard for me. Um,
Cannot believe that now.
yeah, I mean, I still have problems sometimes. Still,
Yeah.
I have to work on it so much. You won't believe. And yeah, Perrin is also a way for me to learn how to express myself, and it's been a great platform for me. But
Yes.
when I was at Williams F1, I felt under pressure to sometimes present to a large number of people. Um, Also, I was getting to a stage where I was becoming more senior in the team. I had an opportunity to become. I moved from being performance engineer in the race team. When I was 30, I decided to be a designer, and I went in the aerodynamic department. That was
Okay.
purely because I felt like my brain was more of a designer, which it is, and it was a good decision for me. So I was still at Williams
Mm-hmm.
F1, and I did 2 or 3 years in the aerodynamic department as a junior aerodynamicist. I
Okay.
had to restart to learn the technique of designing a car. But when you're a junior, it's okay because you just do your job and there's not much
Yeah.
presentation to do.
Yes.
But again, I learned very quickly. I always learn very quickly, and then the opportunity to become senior aerodynamicist came, which was the logical next step for me. But
Yeah.
that fear came back. The fear of presenting, leading a group of people, and
Yeah.
it's the moment where that pressure I felt was just too big, too high for me, and I just couldn't handle it anymore. And at the same time, I felt like I want to start my own business and my own brand because I've got something to give that's bigger than the work I can do in Formula One. So it
Right.
coincided with that, and I quit. I quit Williams F1. I quit Formula One at that point.
It's funny because you say you've got the pressure um, because you're moving into a senior position and you've got so many other responsibilities that you've got to take, and just by like having your own team, within the company. I mean, the F1 team, and then you say, I, I quit F1 and then I go just start my own company. That's even more pressure. So you just transferred that pressure or just the negative thoughts of, okay, I may not be able to handle it, and you just somehow turned it around and made it into a positive impact, into your own good and
Yeah,
your own good to contribute to motorsports, basically, right? Yeah, interesting.
yeah, but I've always felt extremely confident when I do technical solving problems, designing, engineering. If I have to solve a problem, I think I'm one of the best in the industry. Like because that's what I've done all my life. Because I've never
Yes.
become a manager. I've stayed. I've become a technical expert in our business, and
Right.
probably one of the best because I've done 25 years of that.
Yeah.
Normally you don't do 25 years of technical expertise. You tend to become a manager and spend most of your time maybe managing people, leading a group of people. So I felt less confident doing that. uh, my company and quitting F1 was a way for me to escape the pressure of the management side. I sort of I hid a little bit into the let's throw myself into another technical challenge, which is designing the Le Mans car through my company.
Mhm. Mhm.
and I had a very very small team. So again, that's, and I didn't have to present. I didn't have to do things like that. And at the time, it was still a massive issue for me. Now my company is 15 years old and or 14 years old, and we do a lot of talking now and a lot of meeting, and I really enjoy that now. I do, because I
It
have
took you a
learned to
long
do it.
while.
Sorry.
It took you a long while to
It
accept
took
that.
me a it took me a long while. It took me a long while because I had big traumas when I was little, big traumas.
Okay.
That explained, the issues I had. That happened
Right.
to many people. A lot of things like that are explained in your childhood, and for me, my childhood was split between traumas that were very difficult, but also very very amazing things. I talked about the go kart, which I loved. I used to also live in
Yes.
the mountain and go and ski to school and with school, and it was amazing. I had two sides of my childhood, but the dark side, the difficult part, made me that person that was really fearful, and I had to overcome all these fears. So you see, my technical abilities and intellectual potential, in a way, have helped me to become that technical expert. But I had to fight the other side, which is just the
Absolutely.
interaction and the social aspect. But I'm working on it, and I enjoy now
Yeah.
it more and more. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah. It's a process, and like just how we say it, life has its way of showing the good and bad, and we just have to keep on with the good stuff, and the bad stuff will keep coming and it'll just go away, right? So
yeah, yeah,
yeah, really interesting, really interesting. Um, so moving on, of course, you have worked on some of the most complex engineering projects in motorsports. So, what's the one maybe like a failure or a setback that stung the most, and what did it teach you?
yeah. I have a something really stung me bad, and I'll tell you that story. Um,
Yeah.
so I left Williams F1 to start Perrin Limited, my company, with the aim to design a car for Le Mans. At the time, it was a hybrid; it was not electric. I told that story before, and I
Yes.
was so full of energy. I had an investor, to help. So, but I had limited amount of time. I had a year or two to create that concept and then try and sell it to a team.
Right.
Uh, and I had to do it all by myself, more or less. That was my challenge. So I did. I designed the car, I designed the concept, and then I went to Le Mans 24 Hours with my computer and my drawings, and I went to I pushed as hard as I could to try and sell it to someone, and one of my targets was Pescarolo, Henri Pescarolo.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
So his team doesn't exist anymore, but Henri Pescarolo is a legend, and he had his team at Le Mans for
Absolutely.
years. I went to see him, and I managed over a period of 6 months to convince him that what I had was valuable, and we could I could design his new car. And he called me at Christmas after 6 months of talking with him, and he said, "We are gonna do this. We're gonna work together."
Wow.
Yeah. So that was amazing. A great result. I felt like, wow, I've achieved this now, but now work starts. We need to
Yes.
design a car. I had the concept, but we need to make it a reality, and we only have. It was Christmas, and the race is in June.
So the Christmas of which year?
So 2011 Christmas was when Ori called me and said, "Let's do it." The race was in 2012
Hmm.
in June.
Yes.
I put a small team together. We also, some people will know that story, but we needed an existing chassis or a monocoque, and we used the Aston Martin monocoque
Right.
at the time.
Yes.
So we reused some of the Aston Martin project that was dead,
Hmm.
and we did a new aerodynamic package using my concept. So
Hmm.
we did that in the UK. Henri, some of his engineers worked with us, and then we went to France with the car. Everything had to happen very
Hmm.
quickly. It was it was one of these fights, you know. But it
Yes.
happened, and we went with the car in France. We only had 1 month to test the car before the race. We
Wow.
everything that I did was based on CFD, which is aerodynamic simulation. We never went in a wind tunnel, so I designed the car over months before Henri called me, and I
Mhm.
optimized it through simulation, CFD, which is what Formula One teams do, but they also do wind tunnel. Anyway, I'm a big believer in simulation and digital world, so I put all my eggs in that basket. We build the
Right.
car. We only have one shot at it. We just built whatever I said. Let's
Basically.
build this. We go to
Hmm.
France with it. We went on an airfield not far from Le Mans with the Pescarolo team, and just to go in a straight line with the car and measure the aerodynamic downforce. It's a way to validate that the car produces the downforce that we think it should.
So did you have like small strings attached all over the car, just like the
No,
Audis?
well, no, the strings don't really help you much. No, we measure the load in the suspension, so we have like load cells.
Right. Right.
So as the downforce is pushing on the car, the load
Yep.
goes through the suspension, and we have like electronic measurement of the loads. That's just the way we
Yep.
measure downforce on a race car. So we
I
did,
think the strings is basically for the direction of the wind over
yeah,
the car.
but
Yeah. Just wanted.
the strings just they don't really tell you the performance.
Yeah.
They show you the
Yeah.
wind direction, but it doesn't really tell you. At the end of the day, you need to create a force, and the force you need to measure it.
Yes.
And
Yes.
that's what we do. So we went on the airfield, and very quickly we realized the car doesn't produce the amount of downforce that I said from simulation that it will. You know,
Right. It didn't match.
it didn't match by quite a big amount. It was about 25%. A quarter
Oh,
of the load we thought should be there was not. I tell
right.
that story because completely transparently, because it was a blow for me, massive blow. It was too late to change anything. At that point, the race is in
Hmm.
2 weeks. We just have to get ready and prepare and go. So we went to the race. The performance was not what I wanted, what I said it would be, and it was a difficult race. We had other issues with the car. Anyway, we even had a big crash as well in practice. It was difficult, and let me just finish this because from that point I lost a lot of confidence. It took me months to
Right.
recover. It was also a big financial blow because Henri's team was also going through difficulties. It was the last year for him, so I was never really paid for that job. Um, I say that publicly now, but it's not a problem. It's the nature of motorsport. Sometimes it doesn't always work technically or financially. For me, I took it as a big learning process. The biggest
Yes.
learning for me, I tell you what it was. Okay, technically, since we have understood more what happened, and I won't go into details, but at least it's a lesson for like the car that I design now. But from a personal point of view, it was I had to make a decision for myself. Like, do I want to continue or do I want to stop my company?
Yes.
Do I believe in myself or not? Can I do this? And it took me a few maybe a couple of years to recover from that. And
Wow.
yeah, so it was a big blow, and also I was not happy for Henri. We should have
Yeah.
had a great story with this car, and it didn't happen. It was a great story of meeting Henri. I really enjoyed the relationship I have with Henri Pescarolo, but really a great person. But
Well, I think
I would have liked to give him a really good car as his last car. Yeah.
yes. Well, I think you can just invite him, I know, for the Parent 4 to 4 when the car is ready and running. So it would be nice.
100%. Henri will be with us, and I can't wait to give him a call when the car is built. Yes.
That's great. Lovely. Well, let's calm down for a bit and talk a bit more things away from motorsports. So you're known for your precision and just the detail, the attention to detail, and we know that's very important in engineering. But what are you like in your personal life, or is the attention to detail or the precision just comes out when you're doing the engineering bits?
Yeah. I can be very, very obsessed, about one thing. Obviously, I am with 424, and that's the reason why we are going to succeed. But in personal life, it can be tricky sometimes because my brain always thinks about it,
Yes.
and I struggle sometimes to do something else. I do actually. I've learned to try and split, and I
Balance.
prepare,
Yeah.
yeah, to balance. I have to prepare myself sometimes to stop thinking about 4 to 4 or about work, so I can enjoy a really good weekend with my girlfriend, my children, and I do it. I manage to do it now, but it's I'm also very perfectionist, which is good and bad. Sometimes it can
Yeah.
create a lot of pressure. I put a lot of pressure on myself to do everything the right way, and
And you
sometimes
just
it's
can't
not.
help it, right? Like you have to be hard on yourself, otherwise you feel like, oh no, I'm not doing enough, and just involuntarily it affects your personal life. Not every day, maybe, but it's there. So yeah, I can understand.
But I tell you something. You have to balance things, as you say. For me,
Yeah.
I tell you a couple of things about my life that's very different, maybe from most people's life, because of that pressure I put on myself, because of that focus, that determination, that obsession for four
Yes.
to four and my work. I try and have a very simple personal life. For example, I've I've completely dematerialized my life. I don't own anything.
Okay.
Everything I own fits in my car. That's something that at my age is very rare. I have
Yes.
spent nearly 2 years without a house.
Uh,
That was 3 years ago because I was going through big changes in my life and I wanted to simplify my life and experience just renting places and going places to places. That's when I sold everything I had. I do a lot of yoga, lots
mm-hmm.
of yoga every day. I stopped I stopped anything complicated that would take too much time. For example, I used to play golf, but I stopped. Yeah,
Okay.
I did 10 years of golf and I stopped because I realized it's taking too much time on the weekend. I don't want to think too much about equipment and complicated things like this. I want a simple way to do exercise. So I just walk and I hike. I hike a lot.
Okay.
So I take my car, I go somewhere with a beautiful mountain, and then I walk. I walk up the mountain with a backpack. That's what I do. So you
Perfect.
see, I try and counterbalance the extremely
Yes.
intense engineering challenge that I have with a more
Yes.
simple life. Yeah.
Absolute calmness. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Oh, it makes sense actually. It makes sense. Yeah. Oh, great. Amazing stories. Amazing stories. I hope the viewers are enjoying this. Um,
I hope to.
so, you did mention a lot about what you do to help yourself to just get out of the clutter of your work. So, just what are the few things in your like just the daily routine apart from the yoga and just going out in the weekend for a hike, so that you can enjoy the personal life as well. But during your work time, while you're at it, just having a crazy meeting about, okay, we need to rebuild the suspension, it didn't go well. What are the few things that you do helps you perform well at work?
So, well, it comes back to a daily routine for me.
Got it.
So in the
That's great.
morning when I wake up, the first thing I do is I go on my yoga mat. and
Yes.
I do a very quick yoga session for myself, and then I do a bit of meditation every morning,
Yes.
just trying to just trying to be in the present. I listen to a lot of podcasts about uh, you know techniques for calming the mind and being more in the present. There's one thing that I've
Yes.
stopped doing as well. 2.5 years ago, when I had this phase of my life when I was moving around,
Hmm.
I stopped completely reading any news.
That's something I have never began with.
Yeah, I used to first thing go on the BBC or the news.
Yeah.
I've stopped it entirely, and I can tell you honestly, it's been magical for me. It's
It's
been
peaceful.
helping me so much. Yeah, I don't miss it. So I haven't been on the BBC for 2 years now. I don't. I go on YouTube a lot and I watch videos about topics that interest me, but more long-term things. But I don't want to be pulled up and down emotionally by the news. Of course, when important things happen, anyway, people tell me. But that's been a big thing for me. And also, during my day, I'm trying to manage my time as well as I can. I'm very efficient when I need to do something, then I do it fairly
Hmm.
quickly. But I don't want. I'm not the kind of person who works hours and hours.
Right.
Um, Sometimes I stop working. When I feel like there's nothing more to do, I'd rather go for a walk in the afternoon. Or that's. I know it's actually a good investment of time to sometimes stop
Yeah.
working and go for a walk. That I do
Definitely.
that. So managing my time and doing pauses and not always working is something that's important to me. And we're all different, right?
Yeah, yeah, and yeah, it makes sense and good to know that we're not always involved because from the outside it looks as if all the engineers are so much involved, and how do they just function in a normal let's say just a social uh, in a scenario, right? So, so my next and the question was that how often do you go out with your friends or even with your girlfriend, or is it like, oh no, I've got too much work? It does affect my personal life a bit.
So
How does that look for you?
yeah, I don't have many friends. I have very good
Which is good.
friends. Yeah, I have the priorities in my life are my time with my girlfriend and my children.
Yes.
Very important. So I always put that as a priority. I don't live with my children anymore, but I see them, during the month at specific times, organized with their mom, and we go and rent a place because they are a bit far now. But we
Yes.
we have very important times together when we and I take them doing adventures and things like that. So these moments are extremely important, and they are in the calendar nearly a year in advance. So this is very planned. So first priority is my three children. They're 10, 12, and 14 years old,
Okay.
and I love spending time with them. But it's very dedicated, and I try to be really present and available for them when I'm with them. Same with my girlfriend, and after that, really, I don't see friends very much during the week, but I just come from a week skiing with friends.
Oh yes,
So I have
yes, yeah,
moments with friends that are more like in maybe twice, 3 times in a year when we do something. I just skiing is a big
that,
thing, for me because I used to ski when I was little, and I reconnect with my childhood this way. So I need to go in the mountain. I need to go to the Alps in the winter and in the summer,
yes,
and that's when I do things with my friends. But I try and keep my life fairly decluttered from doing too much
yeah,
because I want to have time for, again, for thinking time and work time. And if I feel
yes,
like doing something for 4 to 4, it can be the weekend as well, and I will jump on it.
yeah, yeah.
So it's fairly
Uh,
flexible.
because you need the time for ideation as well. It's not always the work that is it's not always about execution. So but ideating, and then you have to just like strategize and then obviously execute. So makes sense. So the next question would be, who has inspired you in your life so far, alive or dead? It could be, from a young age or even now.
Um, you know, I think because of where I'm coming from my childhood and the traumas I had, and the fact that, uh, for example, my dad at, was not present during my life and most of my life. So there are things that have pushed me to actually do it myself and try and find my own path without maybe having a model or maybe following a specific a model. So to
Mhm.
actually answer your question is harder for me, which is also why some of the things I've done with 4 to 4, a lot of it I do or I start and then I have people helping. But I will give you a name from the motorsport world. Somebody that I'm really fascinated about is Ayrton Senna.
Yes.
I was watching a documentary again about him, a new one on
Yeah.
Netflix a few
Yes.
weeks ago. Every time I see
Like,
something about him, and also I remember him racing. I was
yes.
watching F1 when he was racing. I do
Yep.
remember the race. Where was it again? In the UK when he did that famous
You mean
first lap. Sorry.
like Donington?
Oh, Donington.
It was Donington,
When
92.
he overtook like 4 or 5 cars on a wet track. I
Wow.
watched it live. I remember it.
I can
I
only imagine.
I also remember when he passed. When he had his crash at Imola. I watched it live. I remember that.
Oh,
I was crying. It was it was very very emotional.
yeah.
But the reason why I'm really fascinated by Senna is uh, I I feel like I relate to some of his obsession and how he was connected with what he was doing.
And very meticulous,
He was
what he did.
meticulous, but I think he had something. He was on another dimension compared to other drivers. Like
Yes.
he was very spiritual.
Yeah.
Uh, I think when he was talking about, he could talk about life as well in a different way sometimes. And his story about how he left Brazil to come to Europe when he was younger because he knew he had that in him and he could be the best racing driver.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
I understand that, I feel that. And the last thing as well is sometimes I go back on YouTube and I watched the go-kart races that they did at Paris-Bercy in 1992, 1993,
Okay.
the year before he died. They did like a race which was like an event in that arena in Paris.
Okay.
You're too young. You won't know.
Yeah.
They did,
I
yeah.
wasn't even born.
Okay, I tell you, it was Paris Bercy is like the O2 arena of London, of Paris. It's like a
Okay.
big arena. They do sports
Okay.
events and things like that. And they
Okay.
organized a go-kart race with all the Formula One drivers.
Oh, wow. Oh,
So
I mean, yeah, like
there
there
was
are old videos I could
Yeah,
have come across, but yeah.
Prost, Schumacher, Senna,
And
Herbert.
Mansell, yeah.
Mansell actually, I don't think he went because he was not a go-kart driver before being Formula One driver. So
Okay.
so I was watching and I because I race go-kart myself, I can see when I see a driver, of their level, I see the differences and how they drive. And honestly,
Yes.
Senna is very similar to Schumacher, the way they drive a go-kart. They're quite tall.
Yeah.
They use their body in a certain way. They move for the load transfer. They have a way
Yeah.
to drive the go-kart, and I see it on the video. Sometimes I watch these videos again, and there's a commitment. There's a mindset that I can see, and actually Prost in a way had that as well. I can see that in him, but his different way of for him to drive the go-kart is shorter, and he's using the driving differently. But
Hmm.
Senna had this, and for me there's another dimension in that person that I really like. So yeah, he is an inspiration for me for sure, and never giving up and focus,
Yeah, absolutely.
one focus and one obsession. Yeah.
I think in just like just one line, it's this ability to like detach from this world and still perform. Very few people can do that. All right. And yeah, I mean, I'm already overwhelmed just thinking about like Ayrton and his nickname, Beko. Yeah,
Yeah,
amazing,
yeah, amazing
amazing person.
story. Yeah,
I'm kind of lost for words now, but yeah. So let's get
yeah.
back.
Come on, you can do it.
uh, yes. So what's the one thing you wish people watching this and people you interact with understood about what it really takes to build something like the Perrin 424?
I think I will repeat a little bit what I said, but it's I would use the words obsession, focus, determination.
Yes.
It's at some point in your life, if you want to build something like this, you have to give it everything, but also it's a bit of a contract with yourself that you're making, that you will never stop.
Yes. Yeah.
And I've passed that point where, I told you the Pescarolo story, and it was probably the moment where I was like, stop and go. Do I
Yeah.
really want to continue? Do I believe in myself? Can I do this? I've passed that point. I know I can. I know it's a matter of time to build 424 as the car, but the team, to build the team that I've got in mind takes a lot of time. I've read so many
Yes.
stories behind the successes that we know of some companies, and most of the time, what people don't know is that it takes years of determination, years of just continuing and maybe adapting the initial idea, but just going in the one direction and focusing. I love the idea of focusing very all the energy into one goal. And
Mm.
also the people I work with, I try to instill that in them and say, look, it's not about how many ideas you've got. Ideas are very cheap. Ideas are easy to have, but delivering
Yes.
on an idea is very difficult. Delivering on an idea on a high level quality way is difficult. So we don't have a life is quite short. If you want to deliver something to the highest level, you can't deliver 10 things in a lifetime to that level.
Abs-
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So that's my that's
It's-
that's my understanding, and my personality fits with that. I'm happy to do it. It's not always easy. It feels lonely at time.
Yes.
But I'm okay to be on that journey, and I've got amazing people with me now following, and yourself and the rest of the team um,
Pleasure.
on that with me. So yeah, it's good.
Really well said. Well, I just have two more questions. I think this is the longest podcast we've ever had.
Never mind.
So it's an interesting one. It'll just agitate you. So, which is, so fast forward 10 years, we are at like 2035, and Parent 4 to 4 is racing at Le Mans. Your vision is alive, but beyond the car, what do you want your legacy to be? Because right now, I believe that you want to build a team, because we have the tagline, "We are a team," and obviously the car itself by breaking the Nürburgring lap record, and obviously being at Le Mans with the hydrogen concept alive as well, right? So, what do you want your legacy to be?
Yeah, there's something much bigger than the car over everything that we are doing here, and it's the team. But it's not any team. The pairing team that I have in mind is a network that is extremely trusted. Trust is what I want to build. I want to build a place where people feel like they can come in this place and experience trust in a way they haven't experienced before, especially online. Because really, at this day and age, everything everything of this scale happens online, but the trust part of it is not always there. If you
Yeah,
think of social media networks, traditionally there's a trust issue. The Facebook, Twitter, and these places. We don't
yeah,
we don't necessarily trust it very much, and that's why it's starting to really, collapse. I think these networks are going to collapse. But for me, we've learned a lot from these social media networks. We've learned how to communicate in a new way at
Hmm.
scale, and I want Perrin to be a place where we do communicate at scale, but in a very very trusted way. And I know how to do this. I've got the concept in my head, and we've been doing it for years already. But
Yes.
it's what I want to leave behind is that special place, where people will be confident that they can come here, say what they want to say in a very trusted way, and also invest in amazing projects. It's a place to build something together. Okay.
Yes.
Now, at the moment, we're focusing on building an electric hypercar that can break records and a car that can race at Le Mans. But we could
Yes.
build other amazing things in the future. A rocket that goes to the moon, whatever it is, or solutions to cure some disease or help with clean water in Africa.
Yeah.
Whatever we need to solve as a problem, I want to build a network, a team that can do that at scale.
The trust within the team. I really like it. Yeah. Not many people talk about it. Amazing. So the final question, if you could like just describe your life's journey so far in 3 words, so what would they be?
Wow, I'd say challenging. Hasn't been the easiest. It's been challenging, but I think a lot of it is, again, me putting pressure on myself to achieve certain things.
Yep.
But it's been exciting.
Hmm.
The the what motorsport has given me is I've traveled the world a lot. Especially when I was in F1. I've seen a lot of the world. That's been exciting, and the sport. I love the sport. I love the adrenaline during the race. It's been really exciting.
Yes.
Um, and an adventure. Yeah, I think it's been an adventure, and it is still is. I want to live my life as an adventure. That's why I always feel of staying mobile. I want to be able to move very quickly, which is why I don't
Yep.
own much, so I can move and maybe get closer to the people I want to um, when I want.
Well, amazing, amazing. Very well said. And Nico, this has been incredible. Your story, your passion, the enthusiasm, and of course, your the relentless drive to innovate within yourself, very clearly, which I learned today, and obviously the relentless drive for Parent 4 to 4 as well. Thank you for sharing, just with us today, and to everyone listening. If this episode inspired you, make sure to like, subscribe, and join us for more deep dives into the world of the Parent 4 to 4. Until next time, as I always say, keep pushing the limits and racing towards the future. Bye bye.
Thanks a lot, Goran. It's been really good. See you soon.
Ciao.